You're listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. In this episode, I chat with filmmaker Joseph Herrera about his latest release, a gritty thriller, Dark Distortion.
Listen to me. Sammy is dangerous, and we must get rid of that camera.
I can't let you do that, Trevor.
So thank you very much, Joseph, for cluing me in on one of your latest projects, the horror film Dark Distortion, which is being released on March 3rd by
Yes.
Breaking Glass Pictures. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
It's always a pleasure to talk to creatives, especially when they've got a new project. I'm sure you're very, very excited about spreading the word about. Just top line the plot of your movie, Dark Distortion.
Yeah, Dark Distortion is about a entity that is inside a camera. And somehow these influencers who only care about themselves somehow steal this camera during one of their schemes because they're sort of on the down low influencers, but hustlers stealing from rich men who just want a night with influencers. And well, when they steal this camcorder that has an entity inside of it, well, they're in for a really dark ride.
You've described the movie as a crime horror film, which it is. It has these kind of like almost like pulp fiction crime elements to it, and then it has this supernatural turn. What was the inspiration of combining those two sort of like genres into this film?
Yeah, I love dramas. I really want to do a lot more of those, but I knew I wanted to step into horror film somewhat too. So one of my favorite movies is Spring Breakers with James Franco, Selena Gomez, and I kind of wanted to combine the two of the crime part of that into like a child's play. Although a lot of people, which is interesting, are comparing my movie to Ring.
Yeah.
So it's a little mix of that, those two coming together, the crime and the horror.
Your choice of working with a cast of relatively newcomers who portray the influencers in the film, you sort of like unravel this seedy undercurrent of the influencer culture, especially given what we know about product like OnlyFans sites and so forth, and what people are venturing into. Tell me a little bit about that part, because you all have a personal experience working with influencers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with a lot of them. I think what I always notice is that they get sometimes wrapped up into their own world. And I find that interesting because you kind of have to. It is a business. The people that are very successful in making money at it, it really is hard to lose yourself in the hype. And sometimes you have to because people are paying for that. And you have to keep giving them what they want. And so I wanted to tell a story sort of fictional about how someone can really lose sight of the glamour life that they're creating that isn't real, because you still have to get up every morning and you have bills and you have other things, but these people don't want to know about that. They want to know about the glamour, the hot, the sexy parts of your day.
Yeah, and your choice, the killer's choice of weapon in the movie, interestingly enough, is a camcorder,
Yes.
somewhat analog compared to the world that we live in, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting device because it is sort of like out here,
Yeah.
and there is that frame of like making this camcorder the vessel by which the murders are committed, because it's sort of like when you think of influencers, it's like they're constantly living their life on camera, and there has to be consequences.
Oh yeah. In this movie, you want the camera to see. Well, guess what? The camera is really seeing you this time and you might not like it.
Exactly. The supernatural aspect of the film, how did that kind of come around? Because there are a lot of things culturally that you can kind of like marry into that idea.
Yeah, I think it was more about like I love a lot of horror movies back in the 80s that aren't really so known. There's this one movie called Changeling, and it's about a man that lost his kid, and the supernatural element. I think in horror, supernatural films are very beautiful, kind of like Candyman, where he's this
Mm,
supernatural, you don't know what he is, but I just find them beautiful. So in this story, these parents lost their child and they are grieving over it, and it tears them apart because of that. And they're going to do whatever, at least the dad is going to do whatever to bring his son back. And that means getting into black magic. And the wife is against it. But if her son's back, she's going to do whatever it is to save her son, no matter if she can't even physically touch him.
It's a really interesting dynamic because there's these two parallels of the story until they they kind of cross and they
Yeah.
begin to coexist. How challenging was it as a filmmaker, especially like now in this independent, things are thriving so much in the independent film arena, to kind of like work with your cast, especially because there are a lot of really intense scenes that they have to work in. Tell me about the challenge of working with your cast and bringing them together to bring this to life.
Yeah, this movie is a very, I guess the most simple way to say it is a very sexual driven movie. You
Mhm.
know, I really wanted to emphasize on the sex part of the movie, the bodies, the what they say, what it's very dirty in the only fans just for fans content creator world, which we dive into. So I needed to work with actors that one trusted me and were open to giving me their body in the most respectful way by trusting me. And so I think I couldn't have done it without these actors. And I think if they were willing to trust me and um, deliver, and that's what they did. And I'm so
Right.
grateful for every one of them. It was a challenge at first, like, oh, I got to make sure I get the right actors for this.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, because so that people are clear when they watch this and and they're not turned off by something that's too hypersexual. It isn't necessary. I didn't find it to be inappropriately sexual. It's like
Mhm.
you're talking about a lot, this culture that exists, and you're illustrating it, and you're putting it within the frame and the existence of the horror genre, and then making that part real. I mean, it's like the one thing that I did find interesting is that oftentimes in horror movies, those characters are victims, tend to have some qualities that are redeemable.
Yeah. Yeah. In my movie, it's, you know, I don't think anybody ever goes into saying I'm a bad person. I think they just sometimes don't realize they're doing bad things. And in horror movies, sometimes you don't get a second chance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it all works out in the end as far as like how it starts to unravel and
Yeah.
wrap up. I would imagine that you had looked at certain films and you mentioned that you had some inspirations. What were some of your favorite films in the genre that kind of like led to this moment?
I love a lot of 80s horror. Those are all fun and stuff, but I feel like it wasn't into the 90s slasher era where I felt like the writing gave the teen or the younger characters more. Like they're more than just someone who's going to drink, smoke, say dumb crap, or have sex on screen and then die. I felt like starting with Scream in
Right.
1996, it really flipped it to no, these young people have a lot to say to and contribute to the world. They're not just one character, and that really inspired me with these characters. I really wanted the audience to know like they've been through life. Some of them have lived it. You get a little backstory on some of their characters. So I really that's the 90s slasher really inspired my writing for the characters.
Yeah, Scream, as now celebrating 30 years,
Yeah.
and with the latest installment coming out, it really changed the horror genre, because
Oh yeah.
up until that point there wasn't that sort of like subtext with a lot of their characters. We
Yeah.
didn't really get invested in the characters. We were just waiting for the kills. I remember when Halloween came out, that was like one of the first movies from John Carpenter where the characters were developed before they all started getting knocked off. It's like
Yeah.
we actually cared about Laurie Strode.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that one because yeah, you don't really see them knocked off into the end, so you really get to and that was kind of like the beginning in the 70s. I mean, there was like Black Christmas in 74, and then they had that one. And then they also had in 79 When a Stranger Calls. But then I felt like the 80s, which I love the 80s horror slashes. They're so fun, but it really was just a high and kill.
It
It took a
was.
different direction.
It was like Friday the 13th was just like one kill after another.
Yeah.
It's like you're just waiting, sitting down, waiting. Now, of course, as is the case with films, and also with with how things are in the genre, I would imagine that you're hoping a franchise. Is Dark Distortion geared up for a sequel?
Oh yeah, I'm very inspired by Terrifier, which our distributor, they distributed Terrifier after it's been released and everything through Breaking Glass, and that kind of
Right.
was like a big on Peacock, and I was like, oh,
Sure.
that really inspired me to like everything they did. I was really inspired by how they really just had nothing and they just like, gave it their all and they went for it. So that definitely is a sequel. And with this, one of the reviews had said, this is like the new Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason, and it really is. You can take this camcorder who can kill, and you can do a sequel and a different story. And of course, that's the goal. So fingers
Right.
crossed.
One of the things about that movie is that so much of it is practical, and a lot of your
Yeah.
film is practical as well.
Yeah, that definitely was the inspiration because when you're on a low budget, you got to figure out, okay, we have the writing, we have the actors, we have everything that can help us sell. Because I feel like nowadays, no matter what you're doing, you gotta just think past just, oh, we're gonna do a movie. You got to think marketing, and that
Yeah.
was one of the first things I did with the film was, okay, we're going in with good-looking people, all different types of good-looking people, because everyone has a different type. Let's give
Right.
them all that, and then let's now have a kick like let's have a I don't know if I can cuss,
Sure.
but let's have like a really cool movie of giving the kill scenes.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the budget, we didn't have the time. It's always time on these things, independent films. You
Right.
never have enough time.
You ready to have some fun?
I need you to listen to me. Sammy is dangerous, and we must get rid of that camera.
I can't let you do that, Travis.
How do you want to die?
In my sleep.
I want to die on camera.
You've been listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. My thanks to filmmaker Joseph Herrera. The horror flick Dark Distortion is available to stream on March 3rd across all platforms and is released by Breaking Glass Pictures. If you like what you've heard, tune in and also check out thefanzite.com for all your entertainment and pop culture news. Thanks for joining me, and always stay tuned.